Yeah.
You are the bread and cause.
Good morning. This is just like our regular First Fridays crowd, where everybody is still talking. Hey, online folks, we're glad you're here. Oh, wow, a little reverb here. I can hear myself.
Good morning.
There's a little lag. We're going to mute me.
I don't know the mute here.
Hey, online folks.
Where's your mute?
Good morning.
Jerry, that's a little bit too much muted.
Here he comes. Okay.
Just mute.
Can you hear me now? There we go. Technology is not my forte. But we are glad you're here online. Can you hear me, Sarah? Sarah wishes she didn't hear me. She hears me a lot during the week. So we have a special guest to introduce our special guest. Brittany Bridenstine was a former student and then student teacher under Dr. Zaire. Brittany is going to come up and introduce Dr. Zaire and we'll get going.
Well, happy First Fridays, everyone. Yeah, I think people would like to mute me as well sometime.
Not me.
Take a survey from my husband, maybe. So this morning, not only am I really glad to just see in-person faces and see you all in this room, but I am extremely honored to be able to introduce Dr. Zaire, who I came to know as my 5th grade computer science teacher all the way at Village Elementary. I think Fort Wayne is very special in the way that there's not many cities that you can be able to grow up with the support and genuine relationships and connections of your educators who have made a lasting impression on your life. I don't know if she knows how much she meant to us kids throughout the years, starting at Village Elementary and then being able to be under her as she served as a principal at Southwick Elementary. And so not only has she been very pioneering and transformational and really interested in how do we shape and form the brain of early children in education, but also how do we bridge that gap in our communities and how do we transcend that. So I am very excited to introduce Dr. Zaire, who is now an international trainer for the Feuerstein program. So we will be hearing more about that. She spent 35 years in the education system, educating both students, but also really transforming the way we look at education in the world today. I think you have been very transformative in our community. So she's an alumni of St. Francis. She received her degree there, and then has also just been traveling the world, starting with Israel. And she has just got invited. Can I say it?
Go ahead.
She's just got invited to an Iraq country. And so we are just excited for the work that she's doing across the world. So without further ado, we are introducing Dr. Jeannie Zaire.
Good. There we go. Good morning. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Jerry. And thank you for coming in person, and welcome to all our friends on Zoom. I do a lot of teaching on Zoom, so this is not unusual for me, but I really respect all of the technology work you went through to make this happen today. So very grateful. So yes, Brittany's right, did 35 years in education, and I was starting to get more offers from the Feuerstein Institute to work internationally. And so at some point I had to make a decision. New Haven, Indiana, Australia. I think I'll try this Australia gig. So I've been to Australia 10 times, but also to some other very intriguing places like Cambodia and South Korea and South Africa and Denmark and Paris. So they send me to some beautiful places and then some out of place. So we'll see what happens with the Iraq invitation. That's in the Kurdistan region. So they're working with the traumatized Yazidi people. Don't know if you remember in 2014 when the Yazidis were methodically the victims of genocide. So they have a lot of trauma. And the program that I'm a trainer in was first originating in Israel to help trauma victims recoup from the Holocaust. And then 70 years later, we now discover it works for anybody. It worked for me, anyone who wants to just have their mind work a little better. So it has these deep Jewish roots, actually has some good biblical roots, but it is like an applied psychology program that's kind of fun. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Because what I'd like to, let's see, Jerry.
Working?
Not going forward. Jerry's gonna come up here and let it go forward. So what happened with over the years with doing the Feuerstein work, I discovered that I needed to learn more about the brain and how the brain learns. And so I've become my own like little guru, learning everything I can. So do not try this at home, but it is possible to learn a lot about the brain, and it's fascinating. God gave you one. You can get a heart transplant, you can get a lung transplant. I have a good friend with a double lung transplant. I didn't even know you could do that. So almost every organ, it is possible to do a transplant, but not the brain. So you definitely want to keep hold of that and treat it well. So anytime you read any articles about keeping your brain healthy, please follow them. That is another presentation that I give on how to keep your brain healthy. This morning, I want to speak to you as leaders, that you may not realize that it is possible that somebody who answers to you, or just a friend, that you could be having a little conversation and their brain just might shut down for a few minutes. Have any of you had a situation where you are the recipient of very bad news? Do you remember where you were when you heard about a loved one that passed away, or about a very bad car wreck? And do you remember what your brain was like for the next 20 minutes? You weren't thinking very well, were you? It's like you kind of just go into this, I can't think right now. I just can't think right now. And it's true, you can't, because there's a reason behind that. And that's what I want to share this morning. We'll see if we can get the PowerPoint rolling. If not, I'll give it my best shot without the slides. It is possible. What do you think?
The clicker's not working.
Do you want me to click? I can do
Oh.
that. I can sit here and do it.
Let me see. No, the arrow doesn't work and the space bar doesn't work. I'll let you play around a little bit more. I'll keep talking. So several years ago, I entered a partnership with Parkview Health to try to design a program for children and adults with ADHD, that people who struggle with focus and impulse control. We got quite a few of those. At one time, it was the #1 diagnosis of children was ADHD. Do you know that has been supplanted? That now the #1 diagnosis for children is anxiety? Isn't that intriguing? And so we do work with a lot of kids at the MindCap Center that I'm the director of, children as well as teens, as well as adults that have anxiety. Sometimes depression goes right along with that. So did that research project. Oh, yay, there we go. So I'm going to be using the, okay, there's my email. I'll show that again at the end. And I want to thank not only Parkview for that funding to do that research, to show an alternative to medication. About 25 to 30% of all people do not respond to any medication that is on the market for ADHD. And so what we do at MindCap is we're able to rewire the brain to learn how to focus. And so we help teens go off their meds who don't want to take the meds anymore, or there's no meds that work. And then Fort Wayne Metals introduced me to some work and contracted me to research the brain at work. So it's really the Parkview and the Fort Wayne Metals research that I'm bringing to you today, predominantly the Fort Wayne Metals work. Because we know when you're in leadership and management, you must take care of your own brain, you must know how it works, and you need to take care of the people who report to you because you are a leader to them. So what do we think?
You don't think much
Got
of
a new
anything.
clicker, but
The arrow?
where do you, I'm your Vanna. So you tell me where you want.
Okay, I'm going to give you my premises. Here we go. Let's pop them all up there. By knowing how our brain functions helps us survive daily life, interact with our co-workers, learn better, and lead others with more efficiency and empathy. And I happen to filter everything that I learn in the science world through God's word. So you are a leader, whether you're a parent, an aunt, a grandparent, you are an influencer. You may think, oh, I'm just a support staff person. Oh no, there is somebody who will come to you for advice someday. Even think of a 7-year-old that has a 3-year-old little sister or little brother. That 7-year-old is a leader. So leadership is something that we all wear that mantle. So I basically say if you're a human on earth, you're probably a leader. You lead someone. Have you ever had a moment like I described earlier when you wondered what you were thinking? Or have you ever looked at one of your kids, those of you that are blessed to have little humans that you have raised, that you look at them and go, what in the world were you thinking? Yeah, I'm seeing some nods. Okay. And I've thought it of myself. I've let something come out of my mouth and later I'm going, what was I thinking? I can't believe I said that. Could I, you know, you don't get it back. So we're going to talk about the survival brain. We move toward rewards and we move away from threats when you're in survival mode. Now, when you see a reward, you usually walk cautiously toward it because you want to make sure it is a good thing that you want. But if it is a threat, you don't walk away, you run away. You run, you move as fast as you can from something that appears to be a threat. So I want you to pretend you got to have a vacation this summer. I know a lot of us didn't. And you got this wonderful cabin. And let's put you close to Yellowstone in Wyoming. All right. And you walk out your door the first morning with a cup of coffee. It's a beautiful morning. And what do you see? Okay. Next one. Keep it as it going to go. Oh, you see a grizzly bear coming out of the woods. Now, I know you might want to pull out of your back pocket your Ranger Guide to Dangerous Animals in Wyoming and check out, is a grizzly bear dangerous? Do you think you would do that? No, what are you going to do? Yeah, you're gonna jump back in the cabin, you're gonna slam that door shut, and you're gonna be in panic mode. Your coffee cup is probably flown and broken, and you're gonna owe the owner a new coffee cup. And so you did not take any time at all to think about, is that grizzly bear dangerous? You have enough background knowledge, you know this is a threat to your safety. So here's what happens in your brain. So you saw the bear, and the thalamus took that message. It is like the air traffic control tower of your brain. And it said, I see a bear. And it sends the message to two places, up to the frontal lobes. And the frontal lobes would go, let me get my ranger guide to dangerous animals. The frontal lobes likes to ponder things and think about it. But at the same time, the thalamus sent that message down to the amygdala. Have any of you heard of this little place in your brain? Raise your hands. Yeah, good. You've heard, yes, you've heard this talk. So the amygdala monitors threat and emotions. And the amygdala goes, no, 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 that is a threat. That is a grizzly bear. You are not going to pull out the ranger guide. You are going to slam the door and survive. You're going to get back in the cabin. You're going to wake up all your family. You're going to call the owner of the cabin and go, what in the world? You didn't tell me there were grizzlies around my cabin. So you're going to do all the things to help yourself and your family survive later. Because it's going to take a few minutes for your brain to be able to think again from that confrontation with a snarling grizzly bear. It's going to take a little bit. The hypothalamus sends the neurotransmitters up to the frontal lobes, and the hippocampus is real close to the amygdala, and they think this is why emotional memories stick with us, because this is in charge of emotions and this is in charge of memories. They're not stored there, but they're processed there in the initial stages. So when the amygdala monitors threat, a whole bunch of things happen. There is adrenaline and cortisol that floods the frontal lobes, goes up here to shut them down. Your heart starts beating like crazy. Even if you're instantly safe, your heart is pounding, and it's causing you to breathe hard because blood is now flowing to your muscles, your core muscles, your thigh muscles, so that you can either run or fight, or now they have added freeze. So if you are in a vulnerable position, and sometimes those are almost always children, sometimes it's women, it could be men as well, that they cannot fight, they cannot run away. Your only other choice is to freeze. So that is also a reaction that can happen. So what I've just described is what happens with PTSD. Okay, so it is very closely related. So your IQ drops 10 to 15 points, and you turn into the Hulk, right?
Oh, I was right, okay.
And you turn into the Hulk. So this makes for great comic books. My older brother had every comic book there was. This is an old character. He was around probably 40, 50 years ago. Now he's a movie star. Okay, so poor Bruce Banner, he was exposed to gamma rays in his father's lab, and now when he gets angry, he turns into the Hulk, who sometimes does good things, sometimes does bad things, because he doesn't have a lot of control. Okay, so we now are making money on hijacked characters. A show that really, really capitalizes on this is the Jerry Springer Show. He stands back like this while the fights break out. What's he doing? Making a lot of money. Because it's kind of fun now because of internet and because of Snapchat. Now we have people that watch violence, and it's turned into almost entertainment. So it's a bit of, that's another discussion for another day. Let's talk about the kicker that the neuroscientists discovered not too many years ago, that the human brain does not know the difference between a threat to survival and a common modern day challenge. So you can walk through the office and look at the clock and go, oh my word, I was supposed I was supposed to be in a meeting 10 minutes ago and I didn't see the clock, and your heart starts pounding and you go grab the file you were supposed to have and you go flying in, you try to walk in calm and act like, I'm so sorry I'm late. And meanwhile, you're calming yourself down. You're getting your heart, because this was a meeting you were not supposed to be late to. It may be the most important meeting of the year and you're 10 minutes late. So your brain goes into a very small hijack. It's not a grizzly bear. It is not a threat to survival, but your brain still has cortisol and adrenaline flooding those frontal lobes, and you don't think real well. You're watching whoever's running the meeting, who is probably someone you report to, and you're trying to gauge, are they upset with me? Am I in a heap of trouble? Can I salvage this? While your heart is going like crazy and your frontal lobes are not working really well, you've lost 10 to 15 IQ points. So it's going to take a few minutes. It can take 6 seconds to 20 minutes for the cortisol and the adrenaline to finally drain away. So it just depends on how serious of a hijack that you're in. There are methods to control that. So as soon as you know that that is happening, I'll just tell you real easy, very deep breathing, not panicky breathing, but just through your nose, deep and slow. If you do 3 of those, the adrenaline and cortisol will go, oh, okay, I can back off of here. You're in control because you are controlling your breathing. And so that means your frontal lobes had to get back in control. It is an inverse relationship. It is either the frontal lobes are in control or the amygdala. So we literally can flip our lid. So it's either one or the other. They have an inverse impact on our thinking. So some of the other subtle ways that we can get hijacked could be a deadline. Somebody that is important to you gives you a very strange look and you're going, what does that mean? It could be a new task. I worked with some of the managers at Fort Wayne Metals and they said, they've given me so many new things to learn. I'm not even sure that I can handle everything they've given me to learn. And that can be overwhelming because you want to do a good job. And then loneliness, they have now discovered, is up there with a small hijacking event, that loneliness counts as a hijacking event. So I think you can figure out from what I've shared already that this is also what we call modern day stress. Just a lot of stress can keep your brain from working really well. Your brain boss is what you want in control. This is my name for it, is your frontal lobes. They are in charge of impulse and controlling emotions, flexible thinking, planning, organization, predicting what's going to happen next with the market. Is the president going to get really ill with COVID? All of that thinking that we do with our frontal lobes is our, what we call now, executive functions. And isn't that an interesting label the neuroscientists gave our frontal lobes and the work they do, executive functions. So you want those working well. You want those working really well. And the good news is that if you feel like there's a couple of those or one of those you're not very good at, it can be improved. That's the work we do at MindCap, is developing these. Neuroplasticity is new to most of us, but it's been around now for almost 30 years. The proof that the human brain can grow and that you can improve almost any cognitive skill with hard work, repetition, and practice. You can learn to be an artist. You may not be a Van Gogh, but you can learn artistic talent. You can learn music. You can learn math and spreadsheets, or those things that you've always said, I'll never be good at that. Okay, it is possible with hard work. You just have to grow what's called a new network. Those are the dendrites that grow out of every neuron. Your brain has been gifted with 86 billion dendritic connections. Those make the networks. So every time you've got to learn something new at work and you're feeling like, I don't know how to do this, it's because you don't have a network for it. So repetition, practice, just breathe, keep working at it, and it won't take long, and pretty soon it's going to flow. And then you're going to know, I've got a new network at work. I can do this. I can do this. So when negative emotions appear at work, at home, wherever you're at, we've always been told to express it, get it out. Or I was raised to suppress it. Let's just stuff it. Let's not show our anger and fear are the two emotions I'm going to be talking about the most. Those trigger us. If there is something that gives us fear, it can cause the brain to shut down, or anger can also do the same thing, okay? And instead, I'm going to give you some methods for how to label and reappraise that comes out of neuroscience, not the counseling world, but it's used in the counseling world. So why not express it? Well, that's not always appropriate. Not always appropriate to express anger. Even the micro expression, which is, it's difficult to see, but can you pick up his eyebrows? Yeah. Even what is called a micro expression of anger, somebody else can pick it up. So we've got to learn to get that under control in another way instead of just simmering in it. They have discovered there are 7 sets of muscles in your face that express anger. And if any one of those sets of muscles is engaged, other people interpret that face as power. Now think about the implications of that. Why do angry bosses stay in their role? Why do angry parents continue using anger to control children? Why do some teachers continue to use anger with their students? Because it works. It intimidates. It causes fear. It causes a neuro meltdown, even a small one, and so you back off. So anger is self-perpetuating. That's why we have anger management courses, right? All right, so not appropriate to express it. Why not suppress it? Also not a good option because it can still show up as a micro expression. It makes others uncomfortable. And they have discovered that while you are angry, your memory of events is impaired. Any neural hijack will cause your memory. When it's a serious neural hijack, you may not remember like you thought you did if you have fear or anger involved. And so one of the very best, and I started using this and I found it does work. And we teach it, and our teenagers will tell us at MindCap, yeah, I tried it, it worked. They don't want to admit it, you know, but they said, yeah, it works. When you feel bubbling up, and you need to understand your physical response, where do you feel fear? Because fear and anger are usually a physical response. It's going to be, for me, it's in my gut or it's in my neck muscles. But you know where it shows up, that you're upset, you're stressed, you're fearful, you're angry. Know where it shows up and label it. Just label it, name it. And the minute you go, oh my gosh, I must be afraid right now. Oh my goodness, apparently I'm getting angry, but this is in your head. All right, so you might say something, oh, angry Eddie, just calm down, chill. Or there goes fearful Freddy, no, you're not gonna do this to me. So you name it and move on. So this obviously has to be subtle, simple situations that you know you've got to take care of it later, and you don't want to be in that emotion. So labeling it causes again, the flip. It causes your frontal lobes to take charge, and your amygdala goes, well, okay, I'll back down. All right. So there are some other methods that are for the bigger emotions. It's called reappraisal. So these are even better. There's 4 of them, and I'm going to go through them really fast. This is when you need to reframe the situation. The first one is called reinterpreting. So maybe it isn't as horrible as I first thought it was. I know I was 10 minutes late for this meeting, but the boss just nodded at me and said, okay, did you bring your material? And she seems to be fine. So I guess I'm not going to get fired. I guess this is okay. So reinterpret it. Number 2, normalize it. I love the verse in Corinthians that says, no temptation has seized you except what is common to man. I am not the only person that feels like they're drowning. Did COVID do that to any of you? Like, I can't handle everything I got to change this and this. And so we've had some of this in this last year, of feeling like we're drowning, but I'm not alone. There's others out there in the ocean waving a hand too. Number 3 is to change the value or reorder. Oh my goodness, when I left education, where I'd always been a paycheck person, I just did my job, I always reported to someone. And then when I became my own boss, the buck stops here, right? Some of you have lived this, you start your own business. And I thought I had my hierarchy of what had to happen, number 1, number 2, number 3. Bunch of that had to change. And I used to be the type of person that's going to go my way because I've set a goal here and I'm going to make it happen. I'm a get her done kind of girl. I had to reorder my values several times. And it's hard cognitive work to let things go, to do the Elsa thing, to sing, let it go. Yeah, not always easy to do. You could, Brittany could sing it for us today. If we have time, let's do that. Number 4 is to change perspective, to consider literally another person's point of view. Can I get in Brittany's head and imagine what would it be like if I was Brittany? And so this is probably one of the most powerful ones, and they discovered it takes the most cognitive energy. You burn 30% of your day's calories in your brain. So this is why you need to keep it well fed with good brain foods and keep it well hydrated too. It requires cognitive flexibility to be aware of these different methods of changing my perspective and getting hold of my triggers that are sending my frontal lobes into shutdown. So it does take some practice, but again, you can build the networks for that to be able to do it. The longer the day goes, the more exhausted your brain is, the more difficult it is to use these strategies I'm giving you. So do you ever get up in the morning and you're on a special diet or exercise regime and you're knocking it out of the park? And you're like, you eat perfect breakfast, a great lunch, but you have an exhausting day at work and you get home and at 6 o'clock, you're putting everything in your mouth that you shouldn't be eating. Does anybody, you're smiling. Okay, you're with me. Okay, yeah, because I've lived that. I've lived that too. So when you're tired, hungry, or dehydrated, they estimate that if your brain drops just 3% in hydration, that you will get foggy. So often in the afternoon, we want to grab chocolate or a snack or a coffee or a Pepsi, and most people now are shifting to water. There are a lot of people now that understand that, and I've just given you some more evidence of why you want water. The brain needs hydrated. So as a person in the work world, as a parent, you've got to sort your threats. You've got to be thinking what's coming in here. Am I being, for some reason, because I feel my heart beating, or I feel this, a little bit of the stress somewhere in my body, apparently there's a threat here. And is it anger? Is it fear? So can I label it? So is it a threat to survival, or is it a common modern day challenge? And it took me a while as a school principal to realize, you know, this is a really, really awful thing that's happening right now, but I'm not going to die. No one's going to die here. And so I learned to shift, and I didn't even know, I wished I had all of this research when I was a school principal. I think I would have been better sooner, Brittany.
You're great.
Thank you. So there is an author, if you're a reader and you'd like to dive into this a little bit more, I recommend David Rock's book. Wouldn't you just love to have the name David Rock? Yeah, he's our keynote speaker today, David Rock. And he wrote the book, Your Brain at Work. And I've read it twice, cover to cover, and I'm giving you a lot that has come from that book. And I already knew the neuroscience, but David Rock put it in an acronym. and then you've got something to publish. So he calls it his SCARF model, and I'm going to run you through it real quick. The S stands for status. When our status is threatened, so we can, when our status is threatened, that's a very significant driver of who you are in the workplace. So as we move up any type of corporate ladder, every step up feels good. There's a lot of dopamine, which is our reward neurotransmitter, flooding our brain when you get that notice, when you get called in and said, look, we're looking at you. We think it's time to move you into this next position. And you're going, finally, they see that I've got something to give. So status is very critical to how we perform at work, even if it doesn't mean a promotion, but our work is recognized. So be sure that you recognize the status of people that report to you. When our status goes up, our reward circuits are pumped up. When it goes down, then the negative, it deactivates and our threat circuits kick in. I'm upset with my PowerPoint. Because it translated from Keynote to PowerPoint, it lost its formatting. Let's go to certainty. I'm having a minor threat. There's just a little tiny anger that I didn't go through the whole PowerPoint. The C is certainty. And oh my goodness, we like to be able to predict. When our spouse does something that we didn't see coming, when somebody that we work with does something that we're going, whoa, that wasn't part of the plan. We all like a certain amount of certainty in our world. And so that can be threatened, and that can cause our brain to do a small neuro hijack. Unpredictability and incongruence, when that just doesn't make sense, that can cause a threat. What can reward someone for certainty would be clear objectives, knowing the small steps that I've got to take to finish this project. First this, now this, okay, I've got this, I can do this. And then schedules that are adhered to. When we have those senses of certainty, we don't get hijacked and we're able to progress, okay? The next one is autonomy, one of my favorites. Autonomy. Autonomy is that self-governing, okay, that I am in control of my life. My husband just had eye surgery, if you're watching, honey, hope you're there. He had to give up driving about a week ago, had some surgery done, and oh my word, this was really hard for him to watch me drive, because we haven't done much of that in our 48 years of marriage. He always is in the driver's seat. And so he's learned how to relax and knows that, you know, I've driven all these years without an accident, quite a few anyway. So autonomy is that sense of I am in control. So if you want to give someone that you work with a sense of autonomy, you give them choices. It's very rewarding. Oh, I can do this or this. Cool. Then I have autonomy. What is going to threaten someone's autonomy is micromanagement. Have any of you had this kind of person that you reported to? Oh, doesn't it just, yeah. So I like to say that if I was meant to be controlled, I would have come with a remote. And, you like that one? Absolutely. There would have been there is not, okay? I have a brain, I have goals, you tell me what you need done, I will get it done for you. So I do not need micromanagement. The R is relatedness. And of course, the social part of our being is so important. A lot of people, according to Gallup, show up at work because they've got friends there. They have somebody who depends on them. They have somebody that they know is going to bring them their cup of coffee or just give them a treat or just be there to smile. And the work team is critical to have that team. That's what I've built very carefully. There's 10 of us at MindCap. And people laugh when they say, I love so-and-so. Oh my gosh, Vicki does such a good job. Or Ann is just, I go, I hired carefully. I hired carefully. I hired people that were team workers, that would be a part of a team, that we're going to get together and we're going to go over everything we do together. It's not going to be a hierarchy. So this is important to me. It's about a meaningful connection. It's kind of like our neurons and dendrites. There's a synapse that takes a little jump and it has to be just the right distance. So don't smother me. I don't need smothered with your friendship. I just need you to know you got my back and you're there for me. Then the last one is fairness, the sense of judgment, right? And the sense of justice. And this is a powerful one for a lot of people, and it's one that our nation is going through right now, is how can we have all citizens feel like there is justice for them? And they've discovered that in the brain where we have a sense of feeling disgust, like when you see some garbage and you go, ooh, or somebody hands you something to eat that there's no way you can eat that. And you're going, oh gosh, that place in your brain that lights up for disgust is the same place that lights up for when there is unfairness, when there is injustice. Do you see the connection between those two? Kind of interesting. So what can threaten someone's sense of fairness is there's no ground rules. I don't understand how this place operates. Expectations are unclear. What do you want me to do? Explain that one more time. But how do we reward it? With transparency, with stated goals. And they discovered that the reward centers in the brain light up when a team at work says, let's go clean up the neighborhood. Let's go be a part of United Way's Day of Caring. Let's all get on board and do something together. We're going to adopt a child through Compassion International. Just when the workplace comes together to do something outside of the workplace to make the world a better place, this rewards the sense of justice that we're doing something to do our part. So this can be rewarding. So I want to encourage you this morning to put on your leadership scarf. So wrap that baby around and be aware that status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness are 5 ways that neuroscience has shown can be threatened and cause the people that you work with to go into a small neuro hijack if those feel threatened. I thought this was very good work that David Rock did. And again, you can read more in his book, all the science that goes with it. But I've given you the skinny, the quick, yeah. Know what threatens you and your people. And the better you know your people, and there's a couple people on my team that I now know. I now know which part of the scarf they're going to be threatened by. And so I'm preparing when I'm going to tell them something or I've got something I need them to do. I maybe present it a little different to Jerry than I would to Brittany because I know what can threaten them. Be aware of your label and the 5 ways that you can handle those negative emotions, okay? Know that neuroplasticity is for everyone, that it doesn't matter your age. It is never too late for the brain to grow new dendrites and new networks to learn something new. John Quincy Adams said that if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. And I would just guess you're in this room because of that. So thank you for being with me today and surviving all our technology issues. My name is Dr. Jeannie Zare. I'm the director of the MindCap Center. We work with children and adults. And my email is jeanzare@gmail, and it's on my card as well. There's 2 different emails. They both dump into the same one. And we have a website as well. And this has just been delightful. Thank you for your smiles and your good eye contact. You know how to make a presenter feel welcome. Was that good information? Did that help? Was there some new stuff there for you? Okay, good. I'm so glad. Yeah. All right, we've got time for questions if you got any. Thank you. Thank you. All right, yes, ma'am.
You talked about like noticing where you're feeling those, like anger, like your neck, your shoulders, or something. There's a book out called The Body Keeps the Score.
Fabulous book.
So that's what you're talking about. It's like whatever that trauma was, you held on to that, and so that's recognizing it.
Yes, that's a little different. He's going one step further, and he's talking about PTSD. He is the father of PTSD, so he named it. When men came home from Vietnam, they were having horrible reactions. And I've got a good friend, I was at a restaurant and somebody dropped a plate and Ron about hit the roof. And so when the body keeps the score, you smell something, you hear something, you could see something, or you could taste something, and the body goes into a neural hijack. You're not having a memory that takes you back to Nam or the abuse you suffered. The body is remembering that trauma that happened to you, and so it's reacting as if you are still in the trauma. So that's how the body keeps the score. Highly recommend that book. It helped me understand PTSD more fully. Thank you for bringing it up. It's a really good one. I'm talking about just the daily stress of when I go, oh, you know, I got to get my shoulders down. Apparently, I'm getting kind of stressed. Yeah. So thank you. That's a good one. Other questions or just comments? Thoughts?
Could you say the name of that person that she referred to, because it won't be on the recording?
Yes, I'm trying to think of it.
Book
Yeah.
that she referred to. What was it? Was it a book?
The book is titled The Body Keeps the Score.
The Body Keeps the
One of us
Score.
will Google it.
Okay.
He's a Dutch psychiatrist that is American now, but his name, yeah, I'm not pulling it up. We're Googling it. We're gonna get it for you, and I'll say it as soon as Brittany finds it. for me.
Bessel van der Kolk.
Bessel van der Kolk, Vanderkolk, van der Kolk.
Yeah.
Bessel is his first name, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. The Body Keeps the Score. Fabulous book if you're interested in trauma and understanding how trauma works and causes PTSD.
I guess the question that I'm kind of leading into is like, if I'm doing what you're showing me to do,
Mhm.
I can catch some of that stuff before it like centers in there and becomes like a trauma that's going to be triggered again.
Yeah, possibly. Though the common modern day challenges don't usually cause trauma unless it's ongoing. And some of you have maybe been in positions that you can almost get triggered and you're like, oh, that's like when I was back in that job, and you feel the angst. And yeah, so yes, stress can lead to trauma, but he's focusing on severe trauma, Holocaust, genocide, physical abuse type of trauma. Yeah, but thank you. Yeah. All right.
Any questions from online?
Oh,
Type it in
yeah.
the chat and we'll have Rob ask those. We have a lot of great comments saying thank you.
Oh,
and
good.
They've enjoyed it.
Awesome. Awesome. Good,
Got
good.
one comment from Lisa, who says, thank you, Jeannie. A number of the SCARF are challenges for veterans who are employed by employers who are eager to hire them but struggle to retain them because they don't use the SCARF method. Thank you for discussing it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, I've attempted to get in the veteran community a couple times. If anybody can open that door for me, I'd love to.
I got your back.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
I got a guy.
Boom.
He's supposed to be here sitting beside Dave this morning, but he couldn't find his white rimmed glasses.
Are you open to serving veterans communities in other states?
Yeah, I work internationally, so yeah. No
I just want to ask a
problem.
question.
No problem. Good question. Yeah. Absolutely. Because of the PTSD, like my friend Ron, he was a Nam vet. And, but once you know that, it's like, yeah, he may jump out of his chair once in a while, but he calms himself back down. He knows now how to pull it back, and he's fine. Yeah. Just being aware.
Dr. Zare, can you talk about the work that you do across, because I think I've seen some
some questions pop up too. How it blankets a array of communities from teachers, students, to veterans, to college, adult learners. Can you talk about that and just, because there's questions asking who do you present to and who do you train?
Yes. The Feuerstein program that I'm a trainer in is applicable to anyone from ages 3 or 4. And we even work with some 70 and 80-year-olds that are trying to prevent early onset dementia. And that sounds crazy. Well, it can't be good for everybody. That just sounds like it's a magic bullet, Well, the program has been developed. Remember, over 70 years of work has gone into developing the Feuerstein program. So that's why there are components for all ages and all different types of cognitive challenges. So if one person has a 10-year-old child who doesn't pay attention well, great kid, really bright, just struggles with focus. And I've got a 35-year-old who just came into our office, has a new job. It's the job of a lifetime. But he was diagnosed with ADHD, and adults with ADHD are awesome people because they're creative, they're smart, and they get things done because they're constantly looking for the stimulation. So they're great people if you can control them and that they can get in the right place. Oh my word, they get so much done. He's so terrified he won't be able to organize this job and hold on to it. It's the highest paying, best job he's ever gotten. And so we can use the same tools with that 10-year-old as we're doing with a 35-year-old. So what we do is not counseling. It is an active cognitive skills program that can rewire your brain to work better. So that's why it works. On Tuesday night, that would be a good way to answer that question. I do this program with the women of Redemption House. They're women coming through the court system or out of prison who have an addiction. And so they have a felony on their record. They've got 6 months to get their life together, try to get the custody of their children back. They want a good job, they want a home, and maybe for the first time in their life, they have a future. And so this program has worked very well with them in the addiction recovery arena as well, because you want your brain to work better. Yeah, Rob.
We have 4 questions that have just came in online. One from Jan Diaz. She says, what would you recommend as a good stress test? Often we don't think we are experiencing stress when we really are stressed out. What would a good guide be to determine stress level?
Ooh. I would go back to what you said. Where is it in your body? Yeah, where is it in your body? That's also a question that comes on a mindfulness assessment that I use. That are you sometimes not aware of the emotion that you're having until much later? That you go, well, I was really angry, was I? Well, then you weren't aware. So start being aware of where is your stress showing up, because it always, I think, 99% of the time is going to show up in your body, because your body's trying to respond to it. So your shoulders are getting tight or your stomach is upset. So be aware of where it is in your body. Yeah, yes.
Amy asked, do you do presentations for teachers and or students?
Yeah, I've trained multiple schools, probably more internationally than I have in the States, but yes.
Okay, and then Barry asked, based on what you shared today, what is the one tactic takeaway that each person could implement tomorrow? You mentioned taking at least 3 breaths. What else would you recommend?
The 3 breaths for stress has been hands down just one of the most important things. The other thing would be to pause before you respond. In the Feuerstein program, we learn the motto is just a moment, let me think. And we teach that to 4-year-olds or 84-year-olds. There is value in wait time. So the breaths can be coupled with that. While I'm breathing and calming down, I can be thinking, what am I going to say next? Maybe you've been in interviews. How many of you have done at least 3 or 4 interviews for a job in your lifetime? 3 or 4. Yeah, most people have done maybe 10 or 20. And it's one of the best things I do for for getting people ready for an interview is that when they ask you a question, if you jump at the answer too quick, they're gonna really appreciate when you don't. They're not gonna think you're smarter because you answered so quickly. They might actually think you're smarter because you waited maybe 2 to 3 seconds so that you do have your words ready. So they're very simple suggestions other than the scarf and all of the reappraisal techniques, which I use all the time myself. But the just a moment, let me think, and breathing.
Okay, great, thank you. On that same note, somebody taught me one time to do a 10-second fast before you respond. A 10-second silence fast, you know, where you're, before you respond, count to 10.
Wow.
We have another question. Could you share with me what strategy we can do to deal with something in the past experiences that trigger us?
There is a method. If it is true trauma and if it's a one-time incident that happened to you, EMDR, and that's all I'll say is those 4 letters, EMDR, because I'm not trained in it, but I know enough about it that has been very helpful to people. It is a counseling technique that doesn't take a lot of time. So you go for several sessions, and I highly recommend it that you do need to take care of things in the past. If that isn't possible, there is a research method of journaling. So you write 4 times for 15 minutes, and the first time you put in writing what happened to you. You just write it down in all of its ugliness. There will be tears, there will be a lot. You're going to have to be in a safe place when you even do that writing, because you're going to bring up those old bad memories that you've maybe been suppressing for years. Write about it for 15 minutes and then let it sit, okay? You actually can also burn it and get rid of it. You don't have to keep it. But then your second, third, and fourth time, start working on the silver linings that have come out of that trauma. What are the good things in your life now? What are things that if that hadn't happened, you wouldn't be where you are now? How are you able to help others because of that trauma? And if you can get to that by the 4th time, the research indicates that your health scores go up. Not just mental health. You will be less likely now to get cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure. That sounds crazy, but doesn't it make sense?
Yeah.
How simple is that? Yeah.
Thank you. That's all the questions that we have on the.
Okay.
All right.
Those are such good ones.
You know, I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm working with single moms and, you know, newly single families, you know, single mom-led, and, you know, 1 out of 4 homes is a single mom-led household. And it's just like, what you're describing is like where they are. They are offline because the traumas are hitting so fast. Nothing that they planned is happening.
Yeah.
And then there's all the,
It's all day, every day.
yeah, and you know, and adults are acting like kids and people are fighting. And it's like, what's the new normal? And it's just like, everybody's offline, kids and the parents. And so
Yes.
I love what you've given, and I'm gonna like share some of that with some of these people, because it's like, how do you get back online so you start acting like an adult?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the kids, they don't have the tools.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. The children need the tools just like we do. We're all human and we all have a lot in life. There's a beautiful verse that we all know. If you know Psalm 46, it says, "Be still and know that I am Lord." And I will tell you that if you read it out of the Hebrew and translate it directly from the Hebrew, it says, "Desist and know that I am Lord." Okay, so there's a little different sound there. In other words, if you don't take time to figure out how to be still and still your spirit and your soul, I'm afraid I'm going to have to do it for you. So I appreciated that Hebrew version of that verse. I'm like, okay, Jeannie, you've got to learn how to do this. And I do help parents with that anxiety. Okay, calm and anxiety are both contagious. Do you know who you go to? Because when you're with them, they just take you to, it could be your pastor, your spouse, a good friend, a child in your life that when you're with them, it's just such a good place to be with them. And then is there someone that you can bring up in your head that when you're with them, they're just so anxious and wired, and you're just like, you can't wait to kind of get away from them because they just, okay, mothers are the single first connection to children, and children will mirror their mother's calmness or their anxiety. And so I tell moms, I love you. You know, we're working with you here. You've got to put on your parent pants. You are the parent here. And I know you've gone through hell and back. This is awful what you've gone through. But you've got these 3 little kids looking at you. And if you're not calm, they can't be calm. So I'm going to help you so that you can be calm for them. Because a lot of parents, when they're in the moment, they think they deserve to have the meltdown. They think I deserve to be angry or to be stressed because of, look what happened to me. That's very much a victim mentality. And so we got to get over that. If you're a parent, you got to put your parent pants on. It's hard work. I'll be the first to tell you it's hard work. All right, we are out of
All right,
time.
no, well, that's great. You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Folks who are on site, thank you for coming, being our guinea pigs. You've done great. Next month, we have Nick Dara, who is sitting in here with us today. Nick will be sharing his expertise in working with the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership. And Nick is also a military veteran. And we will be honoring veterans as we always do in our November First Friday. So thank you for joining us on site, online, and we will see you next month. Dr. Zare will be sticking around to visit with people. There's more coffee, and feel free to stay and chat. Have a great day.
Doug, we need a picture of Brittany now. I need another one.
Yes, we need an update.
I need an updated picture.